Hello and a warm welcome. You've joined us on Market Cafe right here on ET Now. I'm Ashesha and with me is Kanishka Sarkar joining us from our Delhi studio. And this is a show where we take you through all the global market update that we've got overnight, the stocks that will be in focus either based on news or brokerage reports, and other top stories that you ought to know this morning. But first up, let's get started with global market update then. And Kanishka, let's start off with the US market update first.
That's right. Ashesha, a very good morning to you, first of all. And, a very interesting trend has emerged from the US markets. Now, investors kicked off the second half of this year with a very noticeable shift in sentiment this time. They have stepped back from the tech sector. Now, while the blue chip Dow, that surged over 400 points, the S&P 500 that dipped about 0.1% in yesterday's trading session, whereas the Nasdaq Composite that slid 0.8%, weighed down by a sell-off in the high-flying tech names that powered the market's second quarter rebound until June. Now, leading this decline was the information technology sector of the S&P 500, which is home to names like Nvidia, Palantir, and Advanced Micro Devices, which dropped more than 1% in yesterday's trading session. It was followed by the communications sector. Now, in contrast, investors did rotate into more defensive plays, with healthcare and material stocks gaining traction. Big names like Amgen, Johnson & Johnson, and United Health, they gave the Dow a very solid lift. Meanwhile, in the US, President Donald Trump's tax and spending bill that narrowly passed the Senate on Tuesday, the measure now heads back to the House, where some GOP lawmakers remain skeptical. Traders are also eyeing very closely the trade developments as the Trump's 90-day tariff. But Ashesha, now moving on, how are things looking on the crude front?
Absolutely, Brent crude has snapped its two-day losing streak. It is starting off with a positive bias, up nearly 0.1% as we speak. It is trading near that 67.
Week. Other than that, on the economic front, attention is now turning to ADP private payrolls report that is going to come out later in the day, with economists expecting a jump of 120,000 new jobs in June. But the real spotlight lands on Thursday with the official jobs report, the marquee data release in this holiday-shortened trading week. But Ashesha, now moving on, how are things looking on the crude front?
Absolutely, Brent crude has snapped its two-day losing streak. It is starting off with a positive bias, up nearly 0.1% as we speak. It is trading near that $67.2 per barrel mark, but all eyes will be on July 6th. That's when OPEC Plus will be meeting to consider next output hike, and delegates are suggesting that perhaps OPEC Plus could be considering another output hike of 411,000 barrels per day. So any kind of update that we get from OPEC Plus over the weekend will be crucial with respect to how the demand supply dynamics will shape up for the oil market going forward. But remember, Kanishka, tensions in Middle East continue to resurface yet again, with agencies reporting that Trump is set to, or rather Iran is set to be cutting off communication with key United States officials. So some important update with respect to their nuclear program, and any kind of geopolitical tensions which continue to resurface will again have an impact on the oil market. But apart from that, let's also talk about the yellow metal. It is trading flat with a little bit of negative bias today morning, near that $3,330 per ounce. Remember, it has risen nearly 2% over the last two trading sessions. And as you mentioned, Trump tax bill has already passed in the Senate. It requires upper house's approval, and if that comes through, then it will be a positive for the yellow metal market. So that's how the gold and oil markets are shaping up this morning. Kanishka.
Right, Ashesha, that's how the oil and gold markets are shaping up. But let's also shift the spotlight to domestic market and how it fared yesterday. Now, the D Street witnessed a very muted set of trading yesterday, with the Nifty was seen ending the trading session at a range-bound levels above that 25,500 mark. Let's go across and get Ankita to get us all the action that took place yesterday.
Well, yes, another quiet day coming in on D Street as Nifty remained rather range bound. It shut shop slightly above the 25,500 mark. It was basically the broader markets that was seeing a bit of a fatigue after the outperformance that we saw coming in Nifty mid-cap though managed to recover from the day's lows, but Nifty small caps ended the session in the red, breaking the outperforming streak. As far as the sectors are concerned, most of the sectors were languishing except for the PSU banks, which were lending some support, barring banks and metals, which were marginally in the green. All other sectoral indices ended the session in the red. As far as some of the individual stock movers are concerned, the top Nifty gainer, Apollo Hospital, was buzzing in trade on the back of the demerger in the pharmacy and digital business into a newly listed entity. On the back of that, Apollo Hospital was up and away in trade. BEL also hit record high levels after securing additional orders worth 528 crores since the last disclosure on 20th of June. BEL was in focus. Reliance also seemed to have gotten its mojo back as the stock surpassed past the 1500 mark on the back of an upgrade coming in from Nuvama and a bullish brokerage note that showed optimism over solar module sales and the boost in the profitability, and therefore Reliance was also lending support to Nifty. Besides that, the paints business was also in focus, whether it's Asian Paints or Berger Paints. ICICI Security reversed its negative outlook on the paint sector after 4 years and upgraded Asian Paints and Berger Paints. On the back of that, these two counters were also in focus. Coming to Motown and the auto sales data that trickled in, that surprised the street with healthy show in the month of June. Royal Enfield and M&M Tractors volume beat the street estimates, while Escort Kubota saw a steady growth in dispatches. Bajaj Auto turned out to be the laggard here. Sectorally, Nifty Auto declined for the second consecutive session, dragged by Bharat Forge and TVS Motor. Nifty FMCG also was the top sectoral loser that declined for the third consecutive session, dragged by Nestle and United Spirits, while the market breadth remained largely tilted in the favor of declines.
Ankita, thanks so much for joining us with all those details. So that's how markets were yesterday. But how should you position yourself for today's trading session? To discuss that, we are now joined by Steve Englander, Standard Chartered Bank Global Head G10 Forex Research, now joining us. Thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us. First question is with respect to Trump tax bill, which has been passed by the Senate and now requires upper house's approval. If at all that were to be passed, how do you read this development and what does this mean for global equity markets?
Well, I think the market is still trying to read it. And some of the volatility we saw in the New York session today, I think, is because the market is trying out various reactions, isn't sure yet. My guess is that it would push up bond yields a little bit, because it does seem that where they need to compromise, they compromise on papering over issues, either kind of spending cuts don't get made, or tax increases are delayed and likely never to come. So I think that the bond part is reasonably clear. Equities seem to like it more or less, and the dollar really wasn't sure. I think markets are concerned about the deficit in the U.S., but they also like higher yields. So, and what we've seen is that the usual correlation between rates differentials and the dollar has largely been restored over the last months or 2 months. So it's very ambiguous, I think, right now.
Okay. Hi, Steve. This is Kanishka also joining in. A very good morning to you, first of all. Now, I want to understand from you, now, apart from the tax bill that we just spoke about, the tariff deadline of July 9, that is also looming. And, since the tariffs were announced in April, we have recovered from those lows. In fact, in the US market, S&P 500 and NASDAQ, they hit their records in the first half of 2025. But then a very interesting trend that we saw yesterday, tech stocks have taken a hit in the starting the second half of this calendar year. So where do you see the next leg of move coming in for the US markets? And also, if you could comment on what kind of global risk sentiment do you see shaping up because of the tariff deadline looming?
Well, I think that part of the reason U.S. equity market performance has been so good, and part of the reason the dollar has been so weak, is that the market has become more optimistic that the July 8th or 9th deadline is not going to be resolved in an aggressive way, the way the April 2nd was, but it will end up being relatively benign. And I think, the market would love to see the status quo. I know it sounds crazy because everybody is, tariffed up, but I think there's a sentiment that the world can live with the 10% baseline tariffs. And they're hoping that the U.S. kind of does do a couple of deals, delays any sanctions, lets negotiations continue, and that's pretty much what's priced in. I think for, when you're looking at the second half of the year, I think the market is at a certain point going to have to look past both the tariff debate and the fiscal bill and say, what is the outlook for growth? What's the outlook for profits? And again, I'd say that's it's more ambiguous. It's not clear that there is that much supply side incentive that's priced into this bill. So we'll have to see how markets react. But it's also possible that, exogenous factors, that we just see AI implemented and contributing to profits and productivity, that gives a better tone, completely independent of policy.
So that's as far as tariff is concerned, but also wanted your thoughts on the US dollar and especially dollar index, which continues to trade at the lowest level that we have seen since 2022. How do you see the US dollar moving, and what kind of impact will that have on other currencies as well?
Well, the market is very negative dollars. Sentiment is very negative dollars. Positioning is negative dollars. And I don't think that, global asset managers and investors have sold all the dollars or hedged all the dollar positions that they want. And again, I'd say that there are different forces in play. In longer term, it may well be that the dollar continues to fall. But if we end up having yields backing up, the market will have to decide whether to chase yields, which they've done so often, or treat that yield back up as a risk premium, which would be negative dollars. So, overall, I'd say the longer term picture is probably not great, but I think there's, balance of forces in the near term that could keep, dollar volatile.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve, for that view. But with that, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and helping us decode the global market setup. All right, then moving on, let's shift focus back to the domestic markets then and see how the F&O segment is set up for today. Pulkit is joining us with just those details.
Hi, Kanishka. Good morning. So if we talk about the F&O setup, what has built yesterday. So for India VIX, it is 12.53 in a comfortable range. No need to worry about it. If we talk about put call ratio changes, please note that these put call ratios are for the weekly expiry. So for Nifty, it is 0.74. And for Bank Nifty, it is for monthly expiry, it is 1.08. And both are at the comfortable range. No need to worry about it. If we talk about the index futures change in open interest, for Nifty, it is around 0.91% in positive, and the trend is long build up. For most active options, Nifty call means the strike price of Nifty call, that is 25,600, and for Nifty put it is 25,500. So the market is consolidated in this range, and that is of 100 points only. For the trend, for call it is call writing, and for put it is put writing. If we talk about the highest open interest, it is 25,500 for put, and for call it is 26,000. And let's go to Bank Nifty. For Bank Nifty, the change in open interest for index future is around 2.23%, and the trend is again a long build up, and highest open interest is again same for call and put, it is 56,000 only. For long positions, so when it comes to the FI long position, it is around 36.66%. For DI, it is around 61.84%, and for retail, it is 51.03%. If we talk about the securities that are in F&O ban, so only one security is there, that is RBL Bank. So Kanishka, this was the setup about the F&O segment and the securities in ban.
Thanks so much for joining us with all those details. So we got an F&O setup for you this morning. But apart from that, which are the other stocks that will be in focus today based on news flow? Ravinder is now joining us to fill us in with all the details. Ravinder, over to you.
Well, first let's start with Asian paint and grasim industry, where both the stock can be in focus, where CCI order probes against India's largest paint manufacturer, Asian Paint, for alleged abuse of dominant position, and the report is to be submitted within 90 days. So back of this, Asian Paint can be in focus. Moving to next, Adani Enterprise can be in focus, where Adani Defense System and Technologies Limited, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the company, has completed the acquisition of 85.1% stake in Airworks India with the enterprise value of 400 crore. Apart from this, rights can be in focus, where company has received the purchase order from African Rail Company for supply of two fully overhauled Elcode locomotive for deployment in Zimbabwe, and the cost of the order is USD $3.6 million. Apart from this, Moil can be in focus, where companies say that the price of all ferrous grade for manganese ore with manganese content of Mn 44% and has increased by 2%, and the price of all chemical grade has been increased by 2%. Moving to next, NMDC can be in focus, where company has announced that June update, where company said that the total iron ore sales was at 3.58 metric ton as compared to 3.73 metric ton year on year basis, and total production was at 3.57 metric ton. And lastly, Lupin can be in focus, where company has received US FDA approval for loteprednol etabonate ophthalmic gel, and the gel is indicated for the treatment of prospective inflammation and pain following ocular surgery. So back of this, Lupin can be in focus.
All right, thank you so much, Rabinder, for getting us that list of all the stocks that are likely to be buzzing in today's trade. But with that, let's shift focus to all the cues that we should be watching out for later in the day. Snehi is joining us with all the cues to watch out for.
Well, there's lots of cues to watch out for. Not much happening back home, but globally we have a lot of macroeconomic indicators that we are tracking. In fact, from US, Tesla is going to be in focus particularly because Tesla is going to be releasing their second quarter vehicle sales figures. So it's going to be an important metric to track for that stock. But other than that, we are tracking unemployment data from Eurozone, so watch out for that very closely. In terms of corporate action and board meetings back home, you have PNB Housing Finance. This stock is going to be in focus because the board is going to be meeting to mull fundraising. And in terms of other events, you have ECB Chief Economist Philip Lane, who is going to be speaking. So keep a close eye on that commentary. And PM Modi is all set to embark on his 5-nation tour as well. So watch out for all of these cues, all of them very important to track in the market setup. Snehi, thanks so much for joining us with all those details, but we need to slip into a very short break on that note. More news and updates coming up on the other side. Don't go anywhere. First up, Japanese market, where Nikkei has started on a negative note, now nearly 0.9%, 356 points gone on Nikkei this morning. Kospi has also begun in the red. It is down nearly 2% as we speak. Shifting focus to other Chinese and Hong Kong market then, Hang Seng, that one, remember this market was shut yesterday. It started with a positive bias, up nearly 0.4% as we speak. CSI 300 index, which is the Chinese index, that one has also started in the red. In a Shanghai market also down 0.2% as we speak, and we have ASX 200 starting with a positive bias, up nearly 0.2%. So mixed bag coming in for the Asian markets, but GIFT Nifty is suggesting a slightly positive start for Indian markets after a absolutely flat ending that we saw yesterday. GIFT Nifty up nearly 30 odd points, 25,673 is where it is currently trading. So Asian markets are largely mixed, Kanishka, but GIFT Nifty is suggesting a positive start for Indian markets.
That's right. A positive start for the Indian markets is what we're penciling in at this point. But let's shift focus to some more news and updates. Now, in a major move to boost manufacturing and jobs, the cabinet has cleared the employment-linked incentive scheme. It offers wage support and EPFO benefits to employers hiring new workers. Now, the goal is to help create over 2 crore formal jobs across the country. First, let's cut across and hear what Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav had to say about the scheme, and also then my colleague Prakash Priyadarshi will share further details on these announcements.
ELI will be focused on the manufacturing sector. इसके दो parts हैं. Part 1 है first timers के लिए, Part 2 है जो कि sustained employment के लिए सपोर्ट करे. दोनों पे मैं डिटेल में आता हूं. पार्ट 1 जो सपोर्ट टू फर्स्ट टाइमर्स, हम सब जानते हैं कि फर्स्ट टाइमर्स को बहुत सारी डिफिकल्टीज फेस होती है जब वो जॉब सर्च में जाते हैं। एक्सपीरियंस वाले को हमेशा एक प्रायोरिटी मिलती है, कॉस्ट भी लगती है एक जॉब सर्च में। उन सब को ध्यान में रखते हुए फर्स्ट टाइमर्स के लिए 1 महीने तक की सब्सिडी, 1 महीने की सैलरी के बराबर सब्सिडी अप टू अ लिमिट ऑफ मैक्सिमम 15,000 रुपीज ये दी जाएगी, जो कि 2 इंस्टॉलमेंट्स में होगी, 6 महीने और 12 महीने के बाद में दी जाएगी। इससे एम्प्लॉयर्स को, कंपनीज को, they will be encouraged to hire the first timer.
The Indian cabinet has taken some significant decisions. The first one is regard to employment generation, where the cabinet has given its nod to employment-linked incentive scheme with an outlay of rupees 1 lakh crores, a very significant development coming in. However, the scheme is applicable to all sectors, but prominence will be given to the manufacturing sector. In fact, as per the structure of the scheme, first timers will get 1 month salary of rupees 15,000 in 2 installments. Along with that, the government will also incentivize employers up to rupees 3,000 per month for 2 years if they generate more number of jobs. Incentives will be extended to the 3rd and 4th years for the manufacturing sector. In fact, a scheme will support employment generation of more than 3.5 crores in next 2 years. In addition to that, benefit is applicable to jobs created between 1st August 2025 and 31st July 2027. A very significant development coming in. In fact, the government is trying to create more number of jobs to meet job requirement. In addition to that, the Indian Cabinet has also given its nod to research, development and innovation scheme with a corpus of rupees 1 lakh crore, where financial support would be provided on development and innovation projects, especially for strategic and sunrise sectors. Along with that, the Cabinet has also given its nod to National Sports Policy 2025.
Prakash, thanks so much for joining us with all those details. But shifting focus then, CCI, or the Competition Commission of India, has ordered a detailed investigation into Asian Paints following a complaint by Grasim Industries, which owns the Birla Opus brand, and they've alleged that Asian Paints used its dominant market position to block its entry by pressurizing dealers, limiting credit, and even asking them to return tinting machines. The Competition Commission of India has now found prima facie evidence of anti-competitive conduct and has directed the Director General to submit a report within the next 90 days. My colleague Anjali is now joining us with more details on this. Anjali, over to you.
The focus on the paint market and the players continues to intensify now that the Competition Control of India has ordered a probe into Asian Paints abusing its dominant power in the market. Now, this probe follows a complaint that was filed by the competitor Grasim Industries, and according to the CCI's order, the Director General has been ordered to launch an investigation into this matter and submit a report within 90 days. Now, let's go over some of the allegations that have been made by Grasim Industries against Asian Paints. These are all anti-competitive practices by Asian Paints that Grasim Industries is alleging. Now, they have said that Asian Paints allegedly coerced dealers not to stock Birla Opus paints, and this was done by threatening them to reduce credits and the loss of incentives. They also asked dealers to return Birla's tinting machines that were given to these dealers. Those were asked to be returned. Additionally, CCI has said that this conduct prima facie amounts to unfair and discriminatory conditions. Asian Paints also has been accused of input foreclosure and denial of market access to Grasim Industries. Now, CCI cites pressure on raw material suppliers, transporters, landlords. So throughout the supply chain, different stakeholders were coerced into not supporting the entry of Grasim Industries into this market. Now, CCI says that such incentives like foreign travel that were offered to dealers for exclusivity, these were not linked to uniform performance policy. So given all of these things that the CCI has found, they've launched an investigation as prima facie they find these practices to be anti-competitive. Now, just to give you some context, Asian Paints holds over 53 market share in the decorative paints business, and Grasim Industries is a fairly new entrant into this space, but now all eyes will be on the findings of this investigation.
Thank you so much, Anjali, for getting us all those details. But moving on, let's keep it with the paint space then. We had an exclusive chat on ET now with Parth Jindal, the managing director at JSW Paints, as the company has acquired AkzoNobel. Let's take a look.
Always looking at ways of growing bigger, and when AkzoNobel Global announced a strategic review of their India business, we felt that this was an incredible opportunity for JSW Paints and to really become a larger player in the space and come into the top 4 and then eventually come into the top 3, which has always been our stated ambition and goal. We also studied the synergies both on the decorative side of the business as well as on the industrial coating side of the business, and we found that there were tremendous synergies from a distribution standpoint, from a procurement standpoint, from a logistics standpoint, and we felt that this was really the business to go after, and we gave it our best. We worked hard on it, tried to give an offer and build a relationship with Greg, which I think I have done now, and I think this is a great outcome for us. It's a great outcome for the employees of AkzoNobel India who come into the JSW family, and with this we really have a shot at coming into the top 3 players in the space.
Right. Now turning to you, Greg, Dulux has been a brand for a very long time in India. It's a household name. So when did this idea about selling the stake come about? What drove that decision?
Dulux is a wonderful brand in India and everywhere else around the world. We're very proud of it. In India specifically, we came to the conclusion that we were underutilizing the power of the brand, and that there was an opportunity to significantly step up in terms of growing the business faster, that it also involved deeper distribution into some of the mid-sized cities in India, whereas Akzo was very good at addressing the large cities, but less so in the smaller cities. And we came to the conclusion that we needed a partner for it. And as we explored different scenarios, we came.
And shifting focus then, India's GST collection slipped below 2 lakh crore mark in the month of June, falling to 1.85 lakh crore after 2 straight months above the 2 lakh crore mark. June collections declined nearly 8% on a month-on-month basis, but was still up nearly 6% on a year-on-year basis. The dip follows record highs in the months of April and May, when robust economic activity and compliance pushed collections to 2.37 lakh crore in the month of April and 2.01 lakh crore in the month of May. Now, despite the drop, analysts see the overall trend as healthy, signaling strong consumption and economic resilience ahead of festive spending later this year.
All right, then that's how the GST collection trend is looking. But moving on, let's shift focus to some more news stories. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to embark on his longest diplomatic tour in a decade, covering 5 nations in 8 days. A high-stakes visit as India looks to deepen strategic and economic ties across key regions.
Has officially signed astronaut Anil Menon to his first mission aboard the International Space Station. Menon will serve as a flight engineer for Expedition 75. He's set to launch in June 2026 aboard the Russian spacecraft alongside Roscosmos cosmonauts.
India and England are all set to lock horns in the second test of the 5-match series in Birmingham starting today. The first test saw 5 centuries and over 800 runs scored in total, but India fell short of victory.
And a few days after the White House indicated that tariff deadline is not sancroscat, Donald Trump is adamant that he will not extend the pause beyond July 9, piling pressure on trade talks with India. India's delegation has stayed in Washington longer to push for a deal and avoid a 26% additional tariff on its exports. While a 10% baseline tariff remains, failure to reach an agreement by July 8 could reignite tariff tensions. Trump insists that each country will get a letter stating their new tariff rates, which could run as high as 50%. India has pushed back on United States demand, including opening its market to genetically modified crops.
I think we're going to have a deal with India, possibly. And that's going to be a different kind of a deal. It's going to be a deal where we're able to go in and compete. Right now, India doesn't accept anybody in. I think India's going to do that.
Okay. Moving on, negotiations led by India's Commerce Ministry and US trade officials have intensified, with both sides extending talks in Washington. However, sensitive issues, including India's resistance to opening markets for genetically modified crops and dairy, remain sticking points. Other than that, President Trump has hinted at a very big agreement, but sources suggest that limited deal covering select goods may be an immediate solution. Will the two nations bridge their differences in trade? Now, tensions are also high over agricultural concessions. India remains firm, refusing to open its dairy and genetically modified crop market, citing the livelihoods of millions of small farmers. Now, the US is pushing for lower tariffs on products like maize and soybean, but India's agricultural sector with India's agricultural sector as a non-negotiable red line. We also spoke to our experts about this matter. Let's listen into what they had to say.
It is, I think, part of President Trump's negotiating strategy to show his desperation and to push the other side into thinking that very little time is left, so they better come up with their best offers, and so that these can be pocketed, and then the US can ask for more. So this is the standard strategy that he has been adopting. But I think around the world, if you look at it, the Chinese have threatened the US that the trade deal that the US is negotiating with other countries should be at the cost of China.
I think that's where we are at this point. President Trump, I think at this point, he said that his trade strategy is going to bring countries to the table, and he will get whatever he wants. It's not happening, and he needs to get something on the table. So just to prove, the administration has already hedged their bets. They said July 9th is a loose deadline. It's not a rigid deadline. They can be extended. And that's what's going to happen. It will be extended. They will talk a lot more. And India has a big constituency to answer to. So they are going to be very particular about what they give in and the optics of what's going on. At this point, they don't want to be looked at as they buckled into Trump's demands. So that's a big hurdle out there that needs to be resolved. I don't know the fine points of the trade deals, where they are stuck exactly, but at a very high level, there are some sticking points that both countries cannot get past by July 9th, looks like.
All right, we need to take a very short break, but before we do that, let's tell you some important conversations lined up for you on ET Now over the next 3 hours. First up, auto sector came out with their operational data and auto sales numbers. We will be joined by the Vice President of FADA, Sai Giridhar, at 8:25 a.m. today. And apart from that, 9:20, we will also be joined by Mahesh Tandurkar. He is the head of research and MD at Jefferies. He will tell us what's the outlook going forward, what are the sectors that he's betting on. A whole host of deals brewing on the street. Firoz Aziz, joint CEO at Anand Rathi Wealth, will be joining us at 10 a.m. today. June auto sales dispatches, how were they? To discuss exactly this, we will also be joined by the CEO of Mahindra Automotive. And value unlocking is happening in the Apollo hospitals. Remember, on the back of that demerger announced yesterday, Apollo Hospitals management will also be joining us at 10:40 a.m. today. So stay tuned.
When the stakes are high and the answers are elusive, there's one voice unafraid to challenge the status quo.
At 8 p.m., I am not here to sugarcoat the truth. I am here to ask the hard questions.
Fierce internal divisions. Some Republicans worry about the bill's $3 trillion projected deficit impact and deeper Medicaid cuts that are added by the Senate. With the razor-thin majority, House Speaker Mike Johnson can only lose 3 votes if he hopes to pass it. Now, Trump insists he wants the bill signed by July 4th. But in a big relief to the energy sector, clean energy stocks surged after the Senate dropped a controversial tax on solar and wind projects from the Trump's bill. The tax would have added up to $7 billion in cost to the renewable sector and mainly targeted Chinese-linked components. Although tax credits for clean electricity will still phase out, the immediate removal of the new tax sparked investor relief.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell is staying cautious about rate cuts, even as some officials are signaling that there could be one in September. Speaking at a global central banking event, he revealed that Federal Reserve could have already cut rates if not for Trump's tariff plans. Powell signaled that trade tensions are forcing the Fed to hold rates steady despite economic pressures. Meanwhile, the White House has ramped up criticism, with Trump signaling Powell terrible and very average mentally. Powell sidestepped questions on his future as chair, whose term ends in 2026. Meanwhile, Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey signaled that UK interest rates are on a gradual downward path as inflation pressures cool and growth remains fragile. Speaking from the ECB forum in Portugal, Bailey said policymakers will decide in August whether to cut interest rates, with economists expecting a 25 basis points rate cut to 4%. Remember, UK inflation eased to 3.4% in the month of May, but is still above the 2% target. Meanwhile, Britain's economy shrank sharply in April, piling pressure on policymakers to revive growth.
Amazon founder Jeff Bezos has sold over 3.3 million shares of Amazon, raking it more than $700 million in dollars. Now, the sale is part of a pre-arranged plan that allows him to offload up to 25 million shares through 2026. Bezos, now Amazon's chairman, has been regularly cashing out stock to fund ventures like Blue Origin and his philanthropy. Now, the latest sale comes just days after his extravagant wedding to Lauren Sanchez in Venice, a 3-day affair reportedly costing over $50 million. However, Bezos still remains Amazon's largest individual shareholder. Democratic socialist Zoran Mamdani has clinched New York City's Democratic mayoral nomination, defeating former Governor Andrew Cuomo by 12 points in a ranked choice primary. Mamdani's decisive win cements him as the progressive frontrunner heading into November and rattles the city's political establishment. His agenda includes taxing millionaires and free buses. His rise has already drawn fire from both Trump and centrist Democrats worried about swing voters.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio hosted foreign ministers from India, Japan and Australia last night to strengthen Quad cooperation and counter China's influence despite rising trade frictions. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar called the meeting very productive and stressed keeping ties on a positive trajectory. The group discussed critical mineral supply chains and regional stability ahead of leaders' summit in India later this year. Defense talks also advanced, with the United States eyeing more arms sales and industrial cooperation with India.
We'll be hosting the summit, the next summit, to taking today's discussions as outcomes eventually probably pass on. It's always, of course, a good opportunity for us to sit and discuss our bilateral tasks. Most of our discussions are going to be better and better because there are less problems to solve and more opportunities to explore.
U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that Israel has agreed to terms for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza and urged Hamas to accept the deal before conditions worsen. Trump also revealed the plan ahead of Netanyahu's visit to the White House next week. The proposal, brokered with help from Qatar and Egypt, aims to halt fighting, secure hostage releases and deliver more humanitarian aid. Trump warned Hamas that this is in their best chance and the best interest, insisting that the situation will only deteriorate if they refuse.
All right, then moving on, as we discuss all these global stories, let's also take a look at all the global commentary that we had overnight. Srishti is joining us now with all the comments that she has collated. Srishti, over to you.
Well, yes, firstly, we have the comments this morning coming in from Fed Chair Jerome Powell, where he's highlighting the fact that the US economy for now is in quite a pretty good shape and the inflation behaving exactly as they have expected. But they are also hoping to see higher number on the inflation readings over summer season as well. And along with that, he has also commented on the rate cut expectations as well, where he is saying that we are gradually seeing cooling off in the labor market, but as of now can't say whether July is too soon to consider a cut and wouldn't take any meeting off the table, and all that will actually depend on the data. So that's the important commentary coming in from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Other than that, we also have the comments coming in from BOE Governor Bailey, where he's actually saying that the UK inflation is entirely due to the administrative prices, and they see a softening in the economy and the labor market. The interest rate direction is downwards, and it's too soon to see any price effects from the tariff and the trade. As of now, the policy restrictiveness will go more neutral. That's the comment that we are tracking from Andrew Bailey, who is the BOE governor at this point in time. And along with that, we also have interesting comments coming in from Christine Lagarde, where she is saying that as of now, the mission is accomplished, but the target is reached when it comes to some of the economic developments, well equipped to navigate the current situation right now, and won't comment to future rate path. The data will tell, so not indicating whether or not we are in to see some more rate cuts or rate hikes in the times ahead. So these are the big global comments that we are tracking this morning. Back to you.
As far as global comments is concerned, but Shrishti, stay on with us. Let's also put the spotlight on auto sales numbers for the month of June, where the verdict is largely in line. Bajaj Auto, Eicher VECV and Tata Motors have posted disappointing set of numbers, but most other Motown candidates have seen inline sales. Tell us more, how are the numbers largely?
So it's been a mixed bag for the auto sales data in the month of June, where we have seen the two-wheelers doing pretty well, while the passenger vehicle were the laggards, like we have been highlighting too. Firstly, let's talk about the passenger vehicle space then. From the pack, we have the numbers from M&M as well as Tata Motors. Both the numbers were okay, because M&M numbers were in line, while Tata Motors passenger vehicle segment did disappoint versus the street estimates. But along with that, Maruti Suzuki also came out with the numbers. Sales at 1.7 lakhs of unit, and that was actually in line to what the street was penciling in. Along with that, from the commercial vehicle segment, we were not building much of a hopes there, but Tata Motors commercial vehicle segment actually managed to beat the estimates. The numbers were in line, while Ashok Leyland within the pack actually managed to surprise marginally versus the estimate of 14,900 units. From the two-wheeler segment, yes, we have the numbers coming in from Eicher Motors Royal Enfield, which was indeed the outperformer within this pack. But along with that, it was Hero MotoCorp as well, which came out with a sales figure of 5.5 lakhs of unit, which was exactly in line to what the street was penciling in. While for TVS Motors, they continue highlighting the fact that because of the rare earth magnet issue, the EV production is getting some bit of impact right now. But for the month of June, the sales were actually in line to the street estimates, while a marginal cut versus the street estimates, or a disappointment rather, what we have seen in Bajaj Auto sales data. And lastly, from the tractor division, like we have been highlighting, that we are not just expecting a good number, but a good commentary as well. And that's what exactly we have seen, because for Escorts and M&M, the numbers are showing to be good. It's a double-digit growth on a month-on-month basis, and the commentary remains on the positive side, where the companies are positive on the growth outlook going ahead. So that's the scorecard of the auto sales data. Back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Srishti, for sharing the scorecard of the auto numbers for the month of June. But with that, we're completely timed out on this edition of Market Cafe. It's a wrap, and it's a goodbye from me and Ashesha. But don't go anywhere, as the market will take all the action forward.